Hi, my name is Ellie Johnson, and I'm the Outreach Forester for Michigan Forest Association, and this is Down and Dirty, How to Plant Bareroot Seedlings. So this is the fifth and final video of the Neighbor Network video training series. So thank you for surviving all of this with me, and let's get to it. So again, this program is hosted by Michigan Forest Association. And who are we? We are a nonprofit whose mission is to inspire and empower people to sustainably manage, conserve, and enjoy forests through education, advocacy, and fellowship. Thank you again for being here and participating in this education event and for considering volunteering to be a neighbor to assist your community. Which again, what is the Neighbor Network? Well, we are establishing a network of private landowners to assist each other with forest management projects, but are especially focusing on tree plantings or reforestation projects. So this video is just the nuts and bolts of let's get these Bareroot seedlings into the ground. So again, we're talking about seedlings, stuff that you or likely order from a conservation district seedling sale. So if you are dealing with larger nursery stock containers, ball and burlap trees, there are different strategies for those, right? We're talking about the small guys with the sake of this video. And you want to make sure you have the right tools for doing this. So we're in the planting stage of things. So depending on what you're planting, I like sticking with the classic spade shovel myself. But if you're doing plugs or smaller conifer seedlings with tighter root structures, a dibble bar might actually be your best friend as far as being able to get through a long line of seedlings with some expediency. But for the sake of getting wide enough holes to adequately accommodate the root structures of different native to Michigan hardwood species, I actually like using a spade shovel more. Something to note too is while you are planting the seedlings, the ones that are waiting to get planted, those roots need to be covered up and kept a little moist. So this picture here of showing these tools, and then we've got this pile of seedlings laying on the ground, is bad news bears. You don't want to be doing that to your seedlings. These should be wrapped up in some like wet paper, kept cool and dark. And so like 5-gallon buckets can be your best friend for this as far as carrying around the seedlings that are yet to be planted. You don't want to have just a bunch of water in there and like fully saturate the seedlings. Roots are also responsible for some gas exchange too, and you could drown the seedlings before you get to planting them. So make sure you've got, so like between that wheelbarrow, your 5-gallon buckets, however you're transporting the seedlings around a tree planting, make sure those roots are covered and that they're staying moist. Okay, the how to plant. Again, this is a webinar. It's not as fun that we're not standing outside together somewhere physically with our shovels. But, and this might have happened already by the hosting neighbor, but you want to do some site prep of like clearing out any other plants that are in the way, because again, we're planting some smaller Bareroot seedlings. The less competition, the better. They are, these are young trees here. So if you've got, even if you're planting in grasses that have they might have been there for years and they have more established root structure. And so you don't want to accidentally cause further water stress because you didn't clear out enough plants from where you're going to plant your tree. The hole should be as deep, if not a bit deeper than the overall root mass, and it needs to be twice the width of the root mass. This is where I feel like people actually mess up. So roots are going to be growing radially from a trunk, and so you want it to be more accommodating for that. And in backfilling the hole when you're done, that soil is going to be fluffed up, so it'll be easier for those roots to grow out and away from where you've placed the tree. So again, like as deep as the root structure that you have, but twice as wide as the width of that root mass. It's a good idea to add a bit of water into the hole before you're planting. You're going to add your seedling into the ground. You're going to place that at the root collar. I've got some pictures coming up of like what the root collar looks like, especially when it comes to native to Michigan tree species. You're going to fill in that soil with the parent material, the soil that's on site. Maybe you're mixing in some compost and biochar at this step if you wanted to do some type of soil amendment. It's up to you. And in backfilling, something that I do is I give the Bareroot seedling like a bit of a tug at the very end to make sure that root collar is back up at level with the soil. If it's too low, it won't grow. If it's too high, it won't die. You definitely want to have that root collar up at the base. If it's down within the soil, that tree is going to die. Then you definitely want to give the seedling some water, help give it a boost in its new home. And depending on what you're doing with your project, and this could have been added here in writing too, but like adding mulch around that seedling, but also this might be the step that you're adding a tree tube or some type of protection from deer when the seedling's physically in the ground. So this is a picture of some tropical tree, right? Some Lauraceae or avocado family member, but it gives a really obvious example of where the root collar is. So where the stem flares out and stops just being a stem and then starts breaking out into all the different roots. So that is where you want to line up the seedling with the soil line. And you can see some other examples with this with some of our native to Michigan trees. We've got a little maple over here, or this oak, the pines over here on this side. So there's going to be like a coloration change and like a bit of swelling. That is the spot that you want to have right at the soil line when you're planting the seedling. This is a lovely demographic about how you can mess up tree plantings. So again, you don't want something to be too low. You don't want the hole to be too small. You don't want all the roots curled up on themselves. As I talked about in the previous video, trees build themselves by chemical cues. So those roots, if they're starting off all wrapped up on themselves like that, right? Or if, say, if you just injected some fertilizer like right at that base where they're growing in and among themselves right underneath where you planted it. As that tree gets older, those wrapped up roots are also putting on growth rings just like the top of a tree does, right? And as they put on that horizontal width, they can sever or like siphon off, cut off their own circulation from other parts of the root system, which is not good. You want to have that hole again as twice as wide as the width of that root mass, so those roots have plenty of space to grow out and away from the stem. So you don't want anything too shallow. You don't want holes too deep. You want to line up that root collar straight with the soil line. You don't need anything to any type of angle. So really, and of course, throughout all of this, the green side is up, right? So when you're planting trees, you are being so cognizant of the roots and how they're doing. Where are you placing them in space? But if nothing else, to start things off, make sure you've got the right side of the tree up and out of the ground. And again, depending on the hosting neighbor and their goals or how they've set up this tree planting, there may be some type of setup for wildlife protection after. Seedling plantings can often fail from water stress and from deer browse. And so maybe it's fencing, maybe it's tree tubes, maybe it's some type of cage around the seedlings. I don't know. This is whatever the hosting neighbor's goals are for this planting. And again, you may be mulching around these planted seedlings. Mulch is helpful to influence the local soil moisture availability right around where you've planted that seedling. It can also help with some weed mitigation too, so other stuff isn't going to come in and get established and then compete with that tree you just planted. There are different considerations for different types of mulch, but mainly it's like if you're adding it, you're trying to provide a more stable water source in the soil medium around that tree. If, as an assisting neighbor, if you are mulching around someone's trees, you don't want to have that mulch right up to the base of that little stem. That could cause some transfer of different pests and diseases into the tree that you want, because mulch is just decomposing wood, right? And so we don't want any of those critters breaking that down to make their way into the tree that you planted in that space. So you want to think mulch donuts, not mulch volcanoes. Here are some further examples on tree planting considerations. You can see this person up here doing like a bit of the pulling up when they're done kind of idea, right? Tamping it down with your foot is a good idea. You don't want to leave any air pockets or anything. So like the next good rain, everything will like settle in deeper. Because again, if it's too low, it won't grow. But if a seedling's too high, it won't die. And that picture to the right is another strategy for trying to have water right around the base of a seedling. It's especially for my folks who have really sandy, well-draining soils, of maybe having a bit of a soil berm around where you've put that seedling and then putting mulch within that. But again, we're thinking mulch donuts, not mulch volcanoes. And why are we doing all this work anyway? Well, trees make the world better. And when you're planting a tree, you're improving your overall watershed health. You're creating habitat for wildlife, and you're making a better world for you to live in. So thank you for your work on this front, and thank you for being a neighbor. And thank you for watching through all these videos with me. You are fully prepared to host your own tree planting project to bring your vision of habitat creation to life on your property, and you are fully prepared to help other neighbors with their tree planting projects. So thank you for being here, and I will see you at the next planting.